We are live.
Wow. On which platforms? Who could I say hi to people? Where are we?
Hello. Yeah, I don't know where I see things. But to anybody out there, welcome and thank you for joining us. As you can see from the title, hopefully, we are Pissed at Panetta, and Jimmy Panetta, if you don't know, is the current
Episode one of Pista Panetta.
yeah.
Question mark.
And if you don't know, he is the current Democratic representative for California's Central Coast, District 19. He has been in office for a decade. And that said, we're not here to just vent. We want to share a fresh take, a new position, a new Democrat, progressive, socialist, whatever you want to call it. Sean Doherty is running for the many, not the money. So can you introduce yourself, Sean?
Hi, everyone. So as Ashley said, my name is Sean Doherty. I'm running for Congress in California's 19th district against incumbent Jimmy Panetta. He's been in office for 10 years. I think it's fairly common knowledge at this point that he's got that seat because his father is very well known. Maybe I'm not supposed to say that, but it's the truth. Everybody knows it. Most of us are really mad at Jimmy right now, especially because of what's happened in the past approximate 3 years in Gaza. Jimmy has voted in favor of every dollar of military aid that has gone to Israel to bomb Gaza. And, the problems are much bigger than just that. But I think that's one of the clearest examples of what's wrong with our incumbent. And just from looking at polling data, but also going out and talking to my friends and neighbors and going to protests and talking to friends of friends, like people are angry at Panetta because they feel like their values aren't being represented. And it's, as I said, not just Gaza. That's just, I think, the most extreme example. But it's also about ICE. Sorry, am I going on too long, Ashley? You didn't want me to talk this long, did you?
We do have a lot to cover.
Sorry.
And I will say, I do want to say hello to our friend Jessa in the chat here. So we now know that we are going live.
Nice. Oh, cool. Hey, Jessa. Jessa, who came up with the name Pista Panetta? So
definitely out there. So I think we should just dive in. I'm gonna kind of like
yeah.
the camera a little bit, and I'm gonna feed in the questions. They'll be on screen. We've seen a few of them, but for anybody who doesn't know, we're getting the questions from Reddit right now, and it's a little unorthodox. It's a little different, but we got a lot of questions in this first post, so we wanted to make sure that he had time to fill in some of the blanks and continue to answer the questions, full stop. So
right. I think we're expecting I think we're expecting most people to watch this after as a recording, and we understand that a lot of people aren't going to be able to join live when it works out for the campaign. But you can submit your questions beforehand, but before we record, and then we'll try our best to find those questions. We'll answer them live, and then we'll post the recording afterwards. So we don't want anybody to feel left out. You can always email the campaign if you have questions, if you feel like your question isn't getting addressed. We want to answer every question, but they're also like just logistical problems, limitations, right?
Right. And I do want to also mention that we have a town hall coming up on the 21st at 7 p.m. So we are very conscious of people's time, and we want to be as available as we can. So just to put that out there. Okay, I'm gonna put up our first question here.
Let's answer some questions. Okay.
Yeah. So this one's a very specific question. So I'm interested in your answer and how you approach this. So, do you have experience acquiring local municipalities?
I know. This is actually a little bit frustrating for me, this topic, because I hear this a lot. This is how I see, I'd say, connected people who are part of the local party, maybe city or county officials, talking about the benefits of having Jimmy in office. They say, oh, well, he's secured this funding for us. And like, it's not supposed to work this way. It's not supposed to be that some well-connected representative is able to secure funding for your city or for your county. It's supposed to be more holistic, right? Like, what is the money that your well-connected individual is able to get to you because his daddy had connections? And why isn't that being done for every congressional district in the country? So I kind of sorry, I don't know who wrote. I wish I could know the username of the person who wrote this question. With all due respect, I reject the premise of the question. I see the role of a member of Congress in the U.S. House as securing block grants for the states. And if it's getting to the point where you're securing special favors for local interests, like you're doing it wrong. That's not how we're supposed to be operating. I wish the person asking the question was here to provide a follow-up question. I don't know, Ashley, do you have a follow-up question? Can you invent a follow-up question? Because I feel bad for rejecting the premise of someone's question. I feel like I kind of answered it, but what do you think, Ashley?
I think so. I think it is a tricky question. I also think that we need to look at where the money is going right now. Just in general. Sorry, I'm trying to like actually figure out how to change this. So there we go. There I am. Okay.
Episode 1.
Yeah,
We're gonna figure this out.
Yeah, and I think another part of this is that a lot of it comes from the communities, right? Like the communities come together and they say, okay, we need this federal funding for X, Y, and Z, and those conversations are had. Like it is supposed to come from the bottom up, right? So yeah, it's a little bit trickier.
Well, you know what? Maybe I was reading this question uncharitably. Maybe I was reading it uncharitably, and I was thinking about how I see connected people in the district who I don't consider like ordinary members of the district. It's like, as I said, the well-connected people are saying, well, he got us this special favor. And that's how I interpreted this question. And maybe that was wrong. Do you have experience acquiring federal funding for local municipalities? So, well, one, I don't. Let me just say that my background is in engineering. I worked a couple decades as an engineer, so I do not have that experience. And I just want to talk a little bit about my philosophy on funding. I'm really frustrated with the way that the shutdown affected the SNAP benefits. That to me was really messed up, because the federal government was playing its games. And in the meantime, the people I know, like people who watch my kid, like I pay babysitters, and my wife and I both work full time, and so we rely very heavily on babysitters. And my babysitters got their SNAP benefits cut, and it wasn't because California didn't have the money to pay them. California has billions in rainy day funds. Like they could have absolutely filled in the gap while we were waiting to resolve the matter at the federal level. But because there were these laws written at the federal level, the decades ago, by the way, I think in the 1960s, there were these laws written that said that if the state tried to put funds directly into these food assistance programs, then the federal government didn't have to compensate them. And I think this is generally a problem with the way that our government operates at the federal and state level. Like, technically, constitutionally, the federal government is not allowed to impose these kinds of restrictions on the state. It's not supposed to have this kind of power over the state. But de facto, the federal government has devised all these ways to control the state, all these ways like, okay, you don't have to do what we say, but if you don't do what we say, we won't give you all this money. that, by the way, we took from you in the first place. So what I want to see, I'm just sick of all these other states being able to stop us living in this state from doing what we know is the right thing to do. Like, why do all those other states get to stop us from giving food subsidies to my babysitters? Why do they get to do that? It's not right. And so I actually like, this is going to sound like a wild thing as a person running for Congress as a Democrat. I want to give more control directly to the state. I want to take power away from the federal government to control the money that we have. They're taking our money and then they won't give it back to us if we don't do what they say. And so we've seen a really extreme case with Donald Trump as president, but we need to remember these lessons. Okay, so I've got way off in the weeds, and Ashley's probably really angry at me. But okay, Ashley.
You know what, though? What I did notice is that you have, there was a question that came up recently, so I'm going to just pop it in here because do you have any tattoos that you need to disclose?
Oh, sorry, did that come up? I do. All right, that's pretty funny. Okay, robot. This is from like 20 years ago. So I for a number of years was very passionate about artificial intelligence. I was working on it in academic and industrial settings. It was there once upon a time. I believed in a vision of AI that I got from the movies, where it was just doing really great things for us and helping us. Like, I could not imagine this dystopian present where AI is being used to take all of our jobs. So I just want to say that, like, I was really intrigued. I was intrigued by the possibility of machines being able to think like us. I thought that was super cool. I take it back. I am no longer an AI enthusiast. I'm horrified by what it's become. And as your representative in the U.S. House, I would see my role as protecting the people of this district from AI, especially the environmental harm and the way that it's trying to take away all of our creative jobs, right? Like, I thought the point of AI and robots was to do the menial tasks, and we do the awesome ones. We'd be making the paintings and writing the poems and writing the books, right? Yeah, okay, and then I've got the other tattoo. It's a monkey that was evolution. I grew up in a religious background, and I had this, like, in my late teens, early 20s, I had this epiphany where I was like, oh, evolution, science. So that's all that is.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next one here. And this is, do you think it's better to hold a firm moral line or bend your beliefs to work with your party?
It's hard for me to answer that in the abstract. So I'd like to take a few specific examples. And okay, let me take one where, oh boy, let's take one where I won't budge. War. Okay, so I'm not going to budge. I'm anti-war. I'm against the war in Iran. I'm not going to, like, horse trade. I'm not going to allow. I'm never going to vote to send more arms to Israel, for example. I'm never going to vote to allow the war in Lebanon to continue, for the war in Iran to continue. Okay, that to me is just, like, fundamental. That is a moral issue. If it's, okay, we're going to take the corporate tax rate and we're going to tweak it by 2 points if in exchange you'll do this other thing. Yeah, okay, we can fiddle with those sorts of things. But I think moral line, if moral line means something like war, or the people in this country getting food, or being able to go to school all the way through PhD, like, I won't budge on those. If it just comes with, like, fiddling a few knobs, as I said, with, like, corporate tax code or something like that, yeah, okay, maybe I'll have a little bit of give and take on that. But I would actually need this person, like, I don't know if this person who asked this question will be able to watch this, but, like, follow up, like, give me some specific scenarios, right?
All right, yeah. And what is your strategy for overcoming the incumbent advantage? And I will say this came up, like, in a variety of different ways. Like, people are just looking at, like, the incumbents are and Jimmy with all the money and everything, and they have all of this access, all these resources. So what do you really do realistically? What do you do?
Yeah, I know this is a really tough question. And incumbents have a reelection rate of somewhere above 90%, I'm pretty sure. And similarly, the candidate with the most money has something like a 90% probability of getting elected. So yeah, it's a very real problem.
I mean, I'm just gonna like chime in and say, like, as I mean, I might be your campaign manager, but like as a normal human, we're just looking at the incumbents right now, and we're like, I think we're questioning them in a different way than we ever have before. Like we're trying to hold them accountable in a way that we never have before. So
yeah, especially with the Epstein files, like who are these psychopaths ruling us? Gosh, okay.
Like discovering Jimmy having all this extra, I mean, I was realizing, all the extra access to these institutions that you could just walk into when you're an elected representative. Like you can't just go into a school and do a meeting and anything like that. Like it's a totally different thing.
No, that's a good point. No, you're reminding me of when I ran last time, because this is actually my second time running. There was a picnic, and I'm not even going to say anything more specific because I don't want to shame people, but like it was a picnic where there were a lot of community members coming, a number of high profile organizations, and I was not allowed to speak because I was running for office. However, Jimmy was allowed to speak because he was an elected official. So it's just like what you're talking about. So he was allowed to address a big crowd of somewhat connected people in the community, for several minutes, and I was off on the sidelines passing out flyers. And so, yeah, that like in a variety of ways, there's huge advantages for the incumbent. So like what Ashley just said with being able to go to schools, or what I just said, like going to an event and being able to get up in front of the mic. But then there's also the fact that, the news will cover what the incumbent is doing, because that is newsworthy, right? Like our elected official is doing X, Y, and Z. That is newsworthy. But I think that zooming in on like our particular district, on the specific incumbent that I'm running against, there is an anger at him, because there's also a disadvantage to being an incumbent, which is if you do bad things and people find out about it, that is detrimental to your reelection prospects. And I think that that's what we've got going on right now. We've got this incumbent who is taking money from a variety of sources that we, the constituents, do not trust, interests that are not in alignment with our interests. And so that, in a way, is counteracting all those advantages that he has as the incumbent. And it's actually, in his case, created this kind of negative feedback loop where, like, as he does these terrible things with his power, with his votes, it requires that he takes more money from these compromising special interests, and then he has to take some even worse votes. So I think that he's gone off the rails, and the community is aware of it. So I actually think that simply by calling out his bad votes and by calling out these compromising campaign donations that he's taken, we're going to be able to take him out. And again, like I'm seeing this just going out, like, just a few months ago, we had to collect signatures to get on the ballot. And when various volunteers from the campaign and when I myself went out to these protests and was gathering signatures, all we had to say was, there's someone running against Panetta. Will you provide your signature to get this challenger on the ballot? They would say, give me that. Whereas in contrast, like if I said, I want to get on the ballot, will you help me? They would say, what? Who are you? So it's like they were acting against the incumbent. So I think, sorry, that was a really, really, really long way of saying, like, in this particular case, I think we overcome the incumbent advantage by exposing the misdeeds of the incumbent. We just hold up a mirror, or we a magnifying glass, or whatever metaphor you want to use, to just show people this is what the incumbent has been up to. And it's just a matter of public record, right? Like we have really clear evidence.
Right. case, it's almost an advantage. I mean, we have people that are literally searching for an option, an alternative. Like,
Yeah.
they're really looking for it. And this, I'm just going to show this one because it's a similar one, and it's saying, you know, how do you win against the candidate,
Right.
the family legacy, all of that.
I know.
Similar.
Okay. Sorry. So let me, can I just address a few things in it? Sorry, I got to put on my glasses. I keep them off because of the glare, but I got to read this. Okay. So DNC, I don't think anybody really cares about the DNC at this point. Like, it's just a vapid, vacuous institution at the top that nobody on the ground cares about. By the way, sorry, side note, I think wasn't it just last week that the DNC had a vote on a resolution that was calling for cutting off AIPAC funding in the primary, right? And the DNC rejected that. So that tells you all you need to do, all you need to know about the DNC, because like overwhelmingly, when you look at survey data, Democrats do not like AIPAC. Democrats do not want the Israel lobby dictating what we do in our democracy, right? So the DNC, irrelevant. I mean, we have to help make it irrelevant or reform it, but we have to educate people about what the DNC is doing. And then AIPAC, I was just starting to address that, but as long as we're on the topic of AIPAC, let's just mention that AIPAC is Jimmy Panetta's #1 donor for his entire decade in office, right? And I, on the other hand, am endorsed by Track AIPAC. You can go to trackapac.com and you can see I have $0 from the Israel lobby. And I know people were asking about the way that I call out the Israel lobby specifically. Let me just mention, I'm only calling out Israel specifically because that's the only country that's showing up on the donor list for the representative in this district, okay? I risk sounding like an anti-Semite when I call out that lobby specifically, but it's actually because we specifically see that lobby donating overwhelmingly to our representative. Family help, yeah. Oh, sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, he's so embedded with AIPAC and so much on the side of this foreign influence that a lot of his legislation that he introduces and co-sponsors and spends time on and gets through, and all of this funding is like, that's where his energy is going to. So it's like a substantial, it's not just like, oh, he's voting for blah blah blah. Like, he's very invested, very invested. So
yeah. Well, let me just address the family help. Sorry, I like this question. This is a good question. Family help. Okay, so family in this case means Leon, right? His daddy, Leon. I mean, I think that
first say who Leon is. Like,
okay, so Leon Panetta. Right. So Leon Panetta goes way back. He was part of the Nixon administration, I'm pretty sure. He was our representative in this district. He went on to be like defense secretary, CIA director, very well known, very powerful, very influential. And it's funny when I go around and talk to people who are like boomer generation, they accidentally refer to Jimmy as Leon all the time. It's very funny. Like, it's so obvious that like the boomer generation especially is just like Jimmy, Leon, same person. I liked Leon, therefore I like Jimmy. Well, no, I don't see it as a good well, but to that generation, they have a positive view of Leon, and they like therefore have a positive view of Jimmy. But when I talk to younger people, and by that I mean early Gen, like I'm early Gen X. I think you're late millennial, Ashley.
Elder millennial.
Right, and I'm a younger Gen X. But when I talk to like younger Gen X, a millennial and Gen Z, they don't know who Leon is. They don't care who Leon is. Like they're and this is great news for us because they're evaluating Jimmy on his merits. You know, they're evaluating on him on what he's done in his 10 years in office. That's bad news for him. Good news for us who are challenging him. So I think the family help is becoming inconsequential.
It is. I mean, I guess Leon is doing, it was for the DNC, right? Like that fundraiser.
Oh, the DCC.
Yeah. So they're still out there doing it, but it's right it's not a good look. It's not helping.
People don't care. Young people don't care. Young to middle-aged people don't care. They don't care.
The elites that we're trying to kind of like get rid of or whatever, and they've been in, yeah. So I went back, I went and tracked this, and between the two, between Leon Panetta and Jimmy Panetta, they've been in office like in the military intelligence, by the way, specifically since '65. That's a long time. Like this is, it's just crazy. So anyway, I'm going to go to the next question because I know you'll be able to answer this one pretty sure. Would you support Israel?
Oh boy. Well, I think people know this is a big part of my campaign. And but before I answer this, let me say I've got a lot of Jewish family. I have a number of first cousins who are Jewish. I've attended bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs for my cousins. I'm very sensitive to the problem of anti-Semitism. People, and I just can imagine the audience hearing that word anti-Semitism, and it's just so polarizing. There are disingenuous accusations. Yeah, exactly. There are disingenuous accusations of anti-Semitism, and there are legit accusations of anti-Semitism. Like I have seen it in my own circles where people stop talking about Zionists and they start talking about the Jews. Like this is, so I just want to make it very clear. I am not against Judaism. I am against Zionism, right? I am not against Jewish people living in that region that some call Palestine and some call Israel. Like, and I don't even want to get into that. I just want to say, like, I'm not against Jewish people living there. What I am against is a Jewish supremacist state that imposes this apartheid regime upon the population living in that region, right? So like people living in that area need to have equal political and human rights regardless of anything, regardless of their religious beliefs, regardless of their ancestry, whatever. So what I am in support of with respect to Israel is a democracy. That's actually something that Mamdani said. I remember that went viral in that debate. He said he supported a democracy. And I think that's exactly the right way to frame this. We need it. There are people who say that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Israel is not a democracy. Israel is an apartheid state. And for those who don't understand what I mean, let me just clarify. When I say an apartheid state, what I mean is a system of laws where one population has one set of laws and another population has another set of laws. And that's what we had in America just a few decades ago, right? With Jim Crow, we used to have an apartheid state. And we as Americans cannot support such a system. And right now our taxpayer dollars are paying for that. So would I support Israel? I I don't even know how to, okay, let me try to answer this. I support an arms embargo on Israel. I support. Sorry, I shouldn't even laugh. Like this is like what Israel has done to Gaza in the past 3 years is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. You know, those of us who have watched on social media what has happened to the children and the adults. I shouldn't even make a distinction to the people of Palestine. You know, it's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life, and I will never forget it. And I would never support the Zionist regime. I would never support them in any way. What I will support is the end of Zionism in Israel. What I will support is the establishment of democracy in Israel or Palestine. Sorry, I feel like, did I answer the question, Ashley?
and I actually appreciate you explaining the apartheid state, because I think if anybody is, because there's kind of these waves of awareness that happen. So anybody that's new and just catching on to the horrors of what's going on, it's like, wait a minute, I know I learned that at like some point, but what does it mean exactly? So it is kind of helpful. And I do want to just like, you know, I say this all the time, but I think it's a devastating and interesting fact. So the way that I came to the political side of anything right now is learning about the atrocities committed by Israel in Palestine on TikTok. And I thought that was absolutely the most, like, I was devastated that that was how I found out. So we never know, like, who knows what. And so it's good to just kind of explain that. But I think,
Well, I just sorry, I just want to make one more point. I think what's really common in our narrative and our discourse in America is this idea that the Muslim population in that region of the world is like inherently antagonistic towards the Jews, like they want to wipe out the Jews. But it's really easy to find counterexamples, like Iran in particular. You know, there was a large Jewish population in Iran before the establishment of Israel, and there wasn't violence between the Jewish and the Muslim populations in Iran. So it's not as if this is some inherent feature of Islam to be hostile towards Judaism. Like that's something that's been invented to justify the existence of this colony of the West.
I mean, that's a good point, because that was one of the first things that, like, someone in my family, they were just kind of realizing what was going on, but they're like, oh, it's always been that way.
Right. Not right. I should say right. Yes. I mean, right. That's what a lot of people say. Right. But wrong analysis.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But what you were saying, that's exactly why it's important. Okay. I'm giving you a new one. Okay. Do you believe rights are granted by the government?
No, I believe that rights are inherent, and it is the role of the government to protect those rights. I don't believe that, and this is actually an important distinction.
Yes, can you say that again louder for the people in the back? Because I think that it was so clear. It's really important.
Right. So rights are inherent. Rights are inherent to your humanity, and the government simply has the role of protecting them. And so let's talk about like the freedom of speech. Like that is a right to say what you think. And let's think about what's been happening during the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, where these green card holders have spoken critically of our foreign policy. And the Trump administration has been asserting that they can be prosecuted for these speech acts. But that's basically predicated on this notion that freedom of speech is granted to citizens and not granted to non-citizens. But I reject that. I say, no, everybody has the freedom of speech. They don't have to be a citizen to have their freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is a right that every human being has. So I think, and so this is a very important question. And so I say, yes, rights, we all have those rights. It's not just for citizens.
Right. And you just touched
Got ahead of myself.
Do you think they should censor speech in any capacity?
Oh man, not really. I mean, there are a few examples, like, and you know, like you can't shout fire in a theater. You can't threaten someone. You can't harass someone. Maybe harass is a little wiggly, but I'd say generally no. I am absolutely against the censorship of people saying things that are unpopular, things that are unpopular politically. Actually, I'll take. Ashley's gonna be like, no, Sean, don't do this. I'm gonna say something controversial, Ashley. COVID. So when people, so COVID is a really great example. Like I remember when people were talking about problems with the vaccine, and there was a lot of censorship around that, and it was actually the federal government that was behind the scene. Like this is well established now. The government was talking to these social media companies and saying, like, you need to suppress that speech. So on the one hand, like on principle, I'm opposed to that kind of censorship. But also, let's just be practical and let's look at what a negative impact that had on our society, because people knew the censorship was happening. So what did that do? It fed into conspiracy theories. Like, it did the opposite of what people wanted to accomplish by imposing that censorship. They wanted just everybody to go get the vaccine. But I think because people knew the information was being suppressed, they didn't go get the vaccine. They just defaulted to believing that there was a problem with the vaccine. So I think censorship doesn't actually work. What do they call it? The Streisand effect, right? That probably goes back like 2 decades. Sorry, that's just me being old. When you try to,
Hi, Audra. Just want to say hi.
Oh, Audra's here. Hey, Audra.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to our supporters there. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's at first I just believe that the best way for us to conduct ourselves as a society is to just allow us to say what we believe. And I think that bad ideas will be defeated by good ideas. I believe in that idea. But I think beyond that, as I was saying, when you try to suppress ideas, it doesn't work. You're probably going to have a backlash, but you're also likely to push people into radical margins. They're going to go off in their own little corners with super crazy people, and they're going to get really radicalized and go with really weird ideas. So I actually think it just like mutates all of society. So the best thing is for us to all just like talk to each other respectfully and say what we think.
I totally agree. It causes more confusion. People don't know what to trust.
Right? Yeah.
You never know what information you're going to find on your own. So yes.
And who gets to decide what gets heard? I mean, that's the fundamental problem, right?
Yes.
Who gets to decide what is acceptable speech and what is not acceptable speech? We need to collectively decide on that.
Yes.
Through debate, not censorship.
Here's a quick one.
No, I assume the PG is Pacific Grove. I'm from PHS, which is Plainfield High School. I assume that was not a typo. I'm from Plainfield, Illinois, which is like, I grew up around a lot of cornfields. It was like how we had fun. Anyway, y'all don't know, but cornfields are actually really fun. You can go make mazes and stuff.
I mean, they look fun in the movies.
Well, some of the movies, maybe. Right.
You never know. I thought this was a good question, and I remember we were talking about this, and I appreciated your answer. So, can you commit, or like, can the campaign commit to not using AI?
I can commit to the campaign not using AI in some specific ways, like I do not want AI to replace creative jobs. Like, I do not want AI to be creating art. Ashley manually creates graphics. Amanda manually creates graphics. I don't want artists to be replaced by robots. I think we use AI a bit for like synthesizing information, helping with Google searches and that kind of thing. And that's
it's in everything right now too.
It is. Well, that's true. That's true.
Like the other challenge. I don't even know how to get it out of my Google. Like, I'm like, stop giving me.
Right, Gemini. Yeah, get out of my search, Gemini. Well, so I think of it in kind of two ways. I think of it in terms of protecting valuable jobs, like worthwhile jobs, like the stuff that I think humans want to do, like as I said, like creating art. Like, we cannot allow AI to replace that. So we're not going to use AI to create our graphics. I want to protect those jobs. We'll use AI to summarize some search results, because otherwise, like, Ashley and I could just do that ourselves, but it would take longer, and that's kind of boring. It's not very gratifying. I don't know.
So if anybody has been listening, Sean can go on for a very time, and we have to sometimes go like, okay, how do we get this down?
Oh, shut up.
But what you had mentioned too was the amount of
Energy.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain what you were kind of talking about with that?
Yeah. So when you use AI for text tasks, like summarizing a search result or maybe composing a paragraph, like the energy consumption for that is about comparable to doing a Google search. Whereas like using AI to generate images or generate videos, especially, that's thousands of times more. So that's why like OpenAI, I believe, has just abandoned their video generation service because it just wasn't profitable to them. But why is it now profitable? Because it consumes so much energy. So I think we should make a distinction between the different things that AI can do. Like AI can operate a spell checker on your word processor, and I'm totally fine with the computer helping me spell things correctly and get my grammar correct, right? Like that's fine. So I think there are some really practical small tasks that AI can do for this, but we should reject AI eliminating all of the fulfilling tasks that we want to do as human beings.
Well, also, I think that people continue to forget how much is used in or they're trying to at least use it in our military and like in
Oh yeah.
weapons. Like that's so huge that I think it just gets totally buried in conversation when you're talking about how much AI is consuming our resources, extracting our resources. And we're like, well, yeah, but like maybe stop using it on all of these drones and these weapons. Like that's such
Yeah.
a huge part of it. And
Everybody needs to watch the Terminator movies. Like, come on. I know that's a long time ago. There's some movies you'll need to watch. Like, this is a bad idea. We cannot be giving robots guns.
Honestly, this past year and a half, all movies can be rewatched in a new frame. Like everything is different. We're like, oh wait, that actually seems super relevant right now.
Yeah, but kidding aside, no, we can absolutely not have fully autonomous weapon systems. That is a recipe for disaster because they're either going to kill innocent people, like what we saw recently at the onset of the most recent war in Iran, right, where that girls' school was bombed multiple times, and I don't know what the final death count was, but it's at least 160. At least 160, yeah. So that's one way that AI can malfunction, or it could be like the nightmare sci-fi scenario where it like turns against us.
Right. And there's also I think I forget the bill, but there's like legislation where they're trying to use AI to decide and determine and interpret the information and threats. So it takes out like the human aspect of like critical thinking. We need as much of that as we can get. Okay, I'm gonna put another one in here because we have about 15 minutes left. A few more questions, but I think we've.
Oh Jesus, yeah. You mean like someone? I'm not quite sure I understand this question, but I'm guessing. So Swalwell, I think we probably all know that Swalwell has been credibly accused of SAing staffers and acquaintances, and he had been the front runner running for governor of California, and thankfully, thankfully those credible accusations were taken seriously, and he's had to withdraw from the race, and he stepped out of his congressional seat as well, right? Like, isn't that official? Yeah. Okay. So he's gone, but. And then there's the case of Fetterman, where he had run as more of a progressive or more of a populist, but he turned out to be this like crazy Zionist Frankenstein. So they just weren't what they appeared to be. God, I know. I'm really worried about this too. I actually, maybe I shouldn't say this either, but I had been with the Green Party for years for basically this reason. Like I had been running with the Green Party because the Green Party imposes some really significant constraints on like the money that the politician can raise, and to me, money is the number one problem. So
yeah, that slush fund that like Congress and their slush fund for covering up their
Oh, right.
You know,
Right. When they're, yeah, right. So they'll get accused of some kind of sexual misconduct, and then there'll be some kind of settlement with the accusers, and it's just completely swept under the rug. Is that what you mean?
right, right.
Yeah.
And I think just too, like between the Epstein files and what we're seeing now, it's like that's great. That's Swalwell like steps down. We need accountability. Like we want accountability. And I will say like lead on your team, and like we have, I would definitely say the majority females on the team that are.
Oh, that's true. I have like no men supporting me, which is a little weird.
A couple,
A couple. It's not many though.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
We are probably the angriest, I would say.
That's about
So, when it comes to, protecting voters, I would say that you have a full team that would also make sure that you stay in line. And I don't think there's any risk of that because, you're just not a predator, and you want to get the predators out, whether it's money or.
Well, the good news. What I want is things that can keep people in check that are easily verified. And that's the nice thing about campaign donations. And maybe I even overemphasize them, but it's because you can go look them up. It's public record. You can go to fec.gov or opensecrets.org and you can find out what money a politician is taking. So at least in that respect, I can assure people, like, just go look at the websites and see who I'm taking money from. And you're going to see that I'm just like grassroots. In the case of Swalwell, I mean, it sounds like it was kind of an open secret, right?
That is a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we stop that?
Yeah. How do we get them to actually listen to women? Like, when they have these complaints and everything, it's just like 1,000 women from Epstein, testified. So.
I mean, so those are kind of two different questions. Like with the money, we can just look at public records and we can see. I think with the sexual abuse, we can prosecute, we can hold to account when we find out about it. Like I don't know what else to say. Like there's no like website you can go to find out that I'm a decent guy. It's trickier. That's more difficult. But I think in the case of Swalwell, I think it can't stop with just like he lost his status. We need to talk more about why was this allowed to go on for so long, right? Like we've seen. I think it's kind of anonymous at this point, but we've seen some posts on social media from people who are saying like in DC, this was well known that he was an abuser. So let's get some investigations into that. Let's try to find out like who was he telling, who knew about this, because people knew.
Yeah, and stop covering it up.
Yeah, but exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no more of this covering it up.
Yeah. Okay, next question here. So what's the probability of ending up with a Republican and a libertarian or some other sketchy combo as the top two?
Oh, that's in this district. That's impossible. So this is very different than the California primary, the California gubernatorial race. No, not going to happen. No freaking way. Because Panetta gets like 2/3 of the vote. Like, there's no way that you split that into another Republican, into two Republicans, or one Republican and one Libertarian, such that in November you get two Republicans or one Republican and one Libertarian. Like that's not possible in this district. What is guaranteed is that Jimmy Panetta is going to be #1 in June, and the rest of us are just fighting for #2. So if you vote for me, then November becomes Democrat Jimmy Panetta, the establishment Democrat, versus me, the progressive Democrat challenger. Or if you don't vote for me, it's going to be Jimmy versus Peter Verbica, the establishment Republican. That's really what we're deciding in June in this district. Who do you want your #2 to be? A Republican or a Democrat? You want it to be a Democrat, a progressive? Vote for me. Otherwise, you get Peter Verbica. It's really that simple. And I don't like that it's that simple. I would like elections that have more choice than that, but that is what we have.
Right. I do want to go back to that previous question because Jessa had a follow-up question here because she said, how do we get everyone around them not to let SA slide like Swalwell? Like, it's a similar. I mean, I like seeing how Congress, like, I see different representatives and different female, like, leaders, just like a lot of variety. It doesn't even matter gender, but like, really, it's just a whole bunch of people that are just screaming about it. So, what do? We just what was the how did they release the Epstein files? The one that you always want to talk about. Like, could we do something like that?
The discharge petition to get the Transparency Act? Is that what you mean? Or
right. Like, are there methods?
Wow. I'm going to have to think about this one a little bit because I'm not sure. I mean, okay, so look at Swalwell. Like, eventually he got held accountable, right? And why was that? Eventually. And it hasn't been, like, there should be charges pressed, right? Like, it's good that he's been forced out of the gubernatorial race, and it's good that he's lost his congressional seat, but that's not sufficient, right? But what did it take? It took someone having the courage to step forward. I mean, this I don't know. I kind of feel unqualified to address this, but I just feel like this is almost like a cultural shift. Like the fact that a woman was taken seriously enough to testify publicly, right? To come forward with her story publicly. That's what it takes. So I don't know how you could enforce that with a law, and I don't like that as an answer. So I think we have to keep talking about it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We have to keep talking about it and keep taking it seriously. And like when there are credible accusations like what we saw with Swalwell, we can't just let it slide, and we have to talk about it.
I think it's worth continuing to talk about.
Yeah, we can keep talking. We should talk about this one at the next live stream. I want to think about this one more because this is so tricky.
I don't think anybody has, like a perfect answer for this because we're all just like, wait, why is the basic stuff not even happening? Why do we have to fight for this? So let me go to our next question here. Sorry. Yeah, I mean that is a tough question. Okay, here's one. How will you oppose establishment incorporation?
I feel like that's what I'm doing right now. But I think the question is like, once I get elected, how would I maintain my integrity? That's how I'm going to interpret that. Is that fair, Ashley? Okay, as an interpret. So one idea I have. Okay, well, number one is I'm not going to take money from those corporate PACs, for example. So if I'm not dependent upon those forces for my getting reelected, I think that goes a huge way towards me keeping my soul. But while I'm in office, how am I going to maintain that integrity? One idea I have is I want to have a council of advisors back in my district, like people who do not live in DC, people who are not connected to DC. I want people who are activists who I agree with currently. Like I'm gonna ask them to be on the committee now, before I get into DC, so that they could just be like a sanity check for me. Like I want that perspective. Another way that I would like to accomplish this is through frequent town halls. Town halls. I don't even want to call them town halls because the town halls that we have here are so useless and terrible. And it's basically just like the member of Congress filibustering and just monologuing. And then there are a few like planted questions and that's the end of it. But I'm imagining events where it's more the constituents talking or asking questions and even interacting with each other. So I think that's really my answer. And it doesn't feel sufficient. So that's as good as I have right now, and it doesn't feel sufficient. I want a better answer, and I welcome people to help me figure out a better answer. But I think that for the moment, my
I saw another candidate pledge to do in-district town halls once a month.
oh hell yeah, no, I'd do more than that. I'd be willing to do more than once a month. But it's like, I guess what I was kind of struggling with to answer before is like, it's not good enough to have a town hall. It needs to be a town hall where the constituents are actually heard. You know, like these town hall, Jimmy Panetta's town halls, when I go to them, they're excruciating because nothing's accomplished. He's not hearing from us. There's no actual opportunity for us to persuade him of anything. So yes, absolutely, Justa, I would support frequent town halls, but they have to be structured in a way that's different. There has to be more time on the mic for the constituents.
Well, I would also say like they need to be educational because, for example, Jimmy Panetta's town halls are just whatever he wants to talk about. But meanwhile, he's in the background proposing all this legislation and doing all these votes, but he's not telling anybody about it. Half the stuff we find out about are just because of like different searches. He's not educating his voters. So
what I would like,
you would see the connection to the corporate donors. I can guarantee you that because the military industrial complex is very much in his loves.
yeah, for sure. But what I would like to be able to do, and this,
So I just want to.
okay. Well, just one last thing about that. I would love it if there were a way for constituents to hold votes, like vote on resolutions that then I am pledged to respect. And we don't have the time to work that through, but I would. I want this. I want to do this. I want voters to be able to override me and say, "You have to do this thing,"
right.
like direct democracy.
At the end of the day, it's really about representation and
right.
How do you hear from the constituents consistently, and how do you know that you're getting everybody's like feedback and applying it so that you can go in and be that lever of power in the vote. So it's not something that's being done. So let's do it. We're gonna have to figure this out. So it is a new world. It is a different type of Democrat over here. So yep. So it's 3 o'clock. I'm gonna end it on that, and I'm gonna say please visit SeanForCongress.org. And you'll see we have some events coming up, volunteer, we have plenty of opportunities. It's definitely grassroots. We have a limit on funds that we accept so that we can stay within those, we can stay accountable to the constituents without any doubt. So all hands on deck, and the better that we can get this message out and spread this awareness, and the faster and the louder we can be, the better.
And we're going to be doing this live stream weekly. So if you have a question that hasn't been addressed, you could just email us info@seanforcongress.org, or I think we'll also be posting to Reddit so people could submit questions there. But we want to hear from you, and your questions help shape my platform and what I talk about on the campaign trail. So please, this is valuable for the whole community.
Yes.
Participate.
Everybody out there watching, thank you so much, and we hope to hear from you, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.